Hi, I'm Emily Keller, designer of Emily Keller Reversible Knitwear. So today we're going to be talking about the link-slink stitch. This might not be a familiar term to a lot of hand knitters. The hand knitting term is garter stitch, but in the knitting industry and in the fashion industry, it's more known as the link-slink stitch. For hand knitters, this is the easiest stitch to knit, and it's also one of the most common, because all you have to do is know how to knit. You don't even need to know how to purl. So actually, when you're hand knitting, this stitch is even easier than jersey. You know how the jersey stitch is made up of alternating rows of knit and purl? Well, the link-slink stitch is made up of either all knit stitch or all purl stitch, which creates this sort of horizontal ridge texture effect. This is a good stitch to use when making scarves, headbands, or any item that's going to have raw edges where you're not going to be linking the edges to anything else. It's also good for chunky machine knit garments and accessories, preferably in a looser tension stitch. Now onto the rating system. For knitting time, I give link-slinks a 5. Because of all the transferring of needles between each row, it can be time consuming to knit, especially if you didn't choose the correct gauge. This is because on a knitting machine, there are two beds. There's a front bed and there's a back bed. When you're knitting link-slinks, after every single row, it has to alternate. Transfer all the needles to the front bed, knit one row. Transfer all the needles to the back bed, knit one row. This is very time consuming on a machine. So it's still better to do chunky even when you're knitting on an auto machine. Choose a chunky gauge. This will drastically lower your knitting time. Programming time. I gave it a 1 because for a technician to program the stitch, it's very quick. It's just alternating rows of jersey and reverse jersey. Price. I gave link-slinks a 3. I gave it a 3 just because you have to be careful with gauge again, and it can be very time consuming because of all the transferring. So if you choose a chunky gauge, your price should be fine. But do not choose a finer gauge because your price will go up and up and up. Strength. I give link-slinks a 5. When it's knitted in a tighter tension, this can be a very strong stitch. When it's knitted in a lower tension, which is more common because it lowers the price, a lot of its strength and its durability can be lost, and it becomes very susceptible to pilling and snagging. Any stitch knitted too loosely is susceptible to pilling and snagging. The drape. I gave it a rating of 8. It has some structure and some texture to it, so it tends to have slightly less drape than jersey does. Comfort. I gave it a rating of 10. This is a really comfortable stitch. Horizontally, it stretches a lot. It's great for leisure clothing and accessories. Texture. I gave it a rating of 5. Link-slinks has these horizontal ridges throughout the fabric, and it gives it a lot of texture and a lot of depth. Weight. I gave link-slinks a rating of 2 because of the way the stitches interlock and because of the texture of it, it tends to be slightly heavier than jersey, just slightly. Torquing, I gave this a rating of 1. Because this stitch is constantly alternating from the front bed to the back bed of the machine after every single row, this really lowers your chances of having torquing. In general, stitches that use both beds of the machine evenly have the lowest chances of having torquing. Balance, I gave it a rating of 10. This is a very balanced stitch because it uses both beds of the machine evenly. It makes it great for accessories and any item where you're going to have raw edges on the finished garment. Because the edges are balanced, they won't curl up on themselves like jersey does. So there's no need to finish the edges. So it's great for scarves, headbands, blankets, anything where you're not going to be linking the edge to anything else. Stretch. I gave this a rating of 9. Horizontally, link-slinks has really great give and really great stretch. Vertically, it has a little bit, but it's much less than horizontally. So in this way, it's really similar to jersey. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed my video. If you found this helpful, please give it a big thumbs up and subscribe. You can check out my last video here called Why Fashion Designers Don't Dress Fashionably.